Living off an $1,800 a month mortgage hasn't been a favor to you. I won't miss you if you leave." Lila, my son Marshall's wife, hurled these words at me, trying to kick me out of the house. Marshall chimed in too. "Mom, you don't like us either, right? If you don't like it, then leave." My husband, standing next to them, wore a snide grin. Seeing them, my anger hit its boiling point. I don't want to be around these people anymore. Fine, I'm leaving. I packed a few essentials and left the house for real. Be prepared, I muttered to myself. My name is Jessica. I'm a 60-year-old working woman. I married Easton when I was 25, and a year later, our eldest son Marshall was born. Marshall has been a handful since he was young. My husband would always say, "Boys will be boys. A little mischief is good for them," and spoil him with endless toys. Because of this, Marshall was emotionally immature compared to his peers. I had many concerns about his future, but he managed to graduate college and enter the workforce. 10 years ago, he married Lila, a fellow worker. I was moved by how well he had turned out at his wedding. But little did I know, this was the beginning of a nightmare. Actually, when talk of Marshall marrying Lila came up, a house was bought under my name. It was Marshall's idea. "I want to live with you and Dad. You're both getting older, and life might get tough. Let's live together before that happens. It's better to have someone around who can help." Lila agrees too. Touched by Marshall's thoughtfulness, I said, "Thank you. If that's the case, let's live together." My husband seemed pleased too. But the issue was, where would we all live? At the time, my husband and I were living in a condo, and Marshall was on his own in an apartment. Lila also had a small apartment. It was cramped everywhere for the four of us to live. Then Marshall came up with an idea. "So why don't we just buy a house, Mom? You can take care of the mortgage every month." Wait, so we're all living there, but I'm the only one paying? "Don't worry, Lila and I will cover other living expenses. You just need to handle the mortgage, Mom." I agreed to Marshall's request. The monthly mortgage was $1,800, and I've been paying it for 10 years without issues. Living in the house was comfortable, and everyone got along. We all had jobs, and our family savings were adding up nicely. But a year ago, I discovered $3,000 missing from our savings. I was looking at the statement and was shocked because I hadn't heard anything about it beforehand. When I asked the family, it turns out Lila was the reason. "Actually, I used it to buy a designer bag I've always wanted. I apologize for not discussing it beforehand." Lila seemed genuinely sorry, so I just said, "All right, just let me know next time you're making a big purchase." But Lila's spending spree didn't stop there. She kept buying luxury items, depleting our savings. Even when I warned her. Lila's bad spending habits only got worse, and so did her attitude. "I have stress too, you know. What's the harm in a little shopping?" she would retort, and refused to stop her wasteful spending. For some reason, Marshall and my husband sided with Lila. Marshall was particularly harsh. "Lila's having a tough time at work. Cut her some slack." My husband joined in, criticizing me. "We're family. Understand her. No need to make a fuss just because the savings dropped a little." However, Lila was spending tens of thousands a month on luxury items. I warned them that at this rate, we'll run out of savings. I tried to bring it up, but the other three just kept saying, "We can just save up again." What's worse, my husband and Marshall started joining Lila in her reckless spending. When Marshall brought home a wristwatch that cost more than $10,000, I, seriously, felt dizzy. "What's gotten into you all? We're going bankrupt." My pleas fell on deaf ears. Then Marshall dropped a bombshell. "I actually enjoy seeing you struggle, Mom. I've always disliked you. I thought living off your money would be enough, but now I want to see you suffer more. Buying luxury items with your money killed 2 birds with 1 stone." I was speechless. Seeing my reaction, Marshall laughed out loud. What's with that face? This is all your fault, Mom. Then my husband chimed in. I thought Marshall was getting the short end of the stick, too. You know, never getting the stuff he wanted, living a life full of sacrifices. So I was on board with the plan to make you buy a house. My husband may be lenient with Marshall, but to go along with such a reckless plan? Just to be clear, I've never been unreasonably strict with Marshall. I've only emphasized basics like greeting people properly and meeting deadlines. I even bought toys for birthdays and Christmas. I thought he would understand once he became an adult. I never imagined he'd resent me for it. I broke down in tears, but the three of them just laughed. Crying doesn't make you any cuter, you know. I never liked you either, so I'm having a great time. Oh, let's all go to a fancy restaurant to cheer up. Without Jessica, of course. Lila said that, and Marshall and my husband agreed without a second thought. They actually left me and went out. I was so devastated that I broke down in loud sobs. Revenge from the family I had always trusted was not something I could easily accept. After that, I tried to talk it out with my family. I wondered if we could reconsider and start over. But all my efforts were in vain. They just mocked me without listening. Our family savings are now almost depleted. I've reached my limit. Reviving this family is impossible. Lately, they've been saying if I'm unhappy, I should leave. Why is this happening to me? I'm not sad anymore. Mostly, just angry. One day after work, I found my belongings packed at the entrance. What is this? As I reacted in surprise, Lila smirked. Since you won't leave, I packed your stuff. We never asked for your help. Even if it was just an $1,800 monthly loan, we won't miss you. Marshall joined in. You hate us too, don't you, Mom? If you don't like it, then leave. My husband just stood there with a sarcastic smile. Finally, my rage hit its peak. I don't want to be with these people anymore. Fine. I'm leaving. With that, I took only the bare necessities and actually left the house. Get ready, I muttered to myself. I explained the situation to a friend over the phone and stayed with them until I found a new place. But I wasn't going to let them get the last laugh. I planned and executed my revenge. Sometime after I left, I got a call from Marshall. Mom, something bad happened. Some guys came to the house and said it's been put up for sale and we need to leave. I couldn't help but laugh, because I'm the one who put it up for sale. You can't just do that. Marshall was angry, but I thought the one being unreasonable was him. I bought that house in my name and paid all the loans, so I can sell it if I want. I even prepaid the entire loan, so don't worry about that. You should vacate soon. I hung up after saying that. I had been kicked out of the house abruptly, so those three have no right to complain, if they've lost their home too. I felt a little relieved, but my revenge was far from over. The next day, I called my husband. Hello, can we talk? Where are you right now? Don't ask where I am. We're in the middle of an unexpected move. It's hectic. I'll call you later. My husband angrily hung up the phone. It was funny to see him flustered, but I hadn't conveyed my message. I sent a message saying we had important things to discuss and asked him to spare an hour. I got a reply 2 weeks later saying the move was done and to come to the new place. Well, finding a place and moving takes time. I arrived at the specified address and found a rundown wooden apartment. Compared to our old house, it was pitiful. My husband appeared when I rang the doorbell at apartment 103. He looked exceptionally grim. Upon entering, Marshall and Lila were also sitting there with grim expressions. Oh, what's with those faces? But what a lovely home you have here. Ignoring my sarcasm, my husband weakly said, Never mind that. What did you want to talk about? I pulled out the divorce papers. I want to sever ties with you. We're getting divorced. Upon hearing this, my husband's face turned pale instantly. Wait a minute. We can't afford a divorce. We have no money. What will happen if you leave too? I don't care what happens to you. I'm not your ATM. 3 adults should be able to earn a living. The 3 of them exchanged troubled looks. My husband began to explain. Actually, Marshall and Lila were fired from their jobs. What? When were they fired? It was information I hadn't expected. Lila 3 months ago, and Marshall about a month ago. They had bad attitudes and were troublemakers, and we had no savings, so losing their incomes hurt us badly. Plus, we only found out they were fired when we chose a new place. They kept it a secret and pretended to go to work. Marshall chimed in, showing no remorse. When they say bad attitude, it's just stuff like ignoring deadlines and not greeting people. Since they were kids, I've always told them to meet deadlines and at least have the courtesy to greet people properly, and yet Lila was no different. I only slept during meetings and threw coffee at my noisy boss, and yet they suddenly fired me? How unfair. That's when I decided to cut ties. Marshall and Lila, what you did could easily get you sued. I'm cutting ties with people who can't understand this even in their 30s. Now agree to the divorce. I won't be giving you any assets. But my husband was still resistant to divorce. Marshall and Lila kept annoyingly begging for money. Frustrated, I pulled out a stack of papers from my bag. This is a copy of my diary, I said. It's all documented, the terrible things you've all said and done. I've been keeping track ever since you all got out of line. If you're not willing to go through with the divorce, I'll take this diary to my lawyer. Is that what you want? The word lawyer seemed to spook my husband, who quickly changed his tone. All right, spare me the lawyer talk. I don't want to make a big deal out of this. Let's divorce. Marshall and Lila started to make a fuss. My husband yelled, Don't act all high and mighty when you're unemployed. They fell silent. Tired of the low-level bickering, I had them fill out the divorce papers. As I left the room, I told my husband, This mess? You're partly to blame for taking Marshall's side. Enjoy taking care of him. Being a parent to a grown child can be quite a challenge. I couldn't help but smirk. I had my own savings, so I didn't worry about making ends meet. I walked out of the apartment, light on my feet. 6 months later, I got a call from my ex-husband. Jessica, can you help me out? Where are you? I've been asking around, but no one seems to know. I calmly said, Well, I moved, but I didn't tell you my new address. I've asked my acquaintances not to share it, so you 3 just live happily together. After the divorce, I moved out of my friend's place and found a new home. I explained the situation in detail to my company and was fortunate to be transferred to another branch that was short-staffed. I took proactive steps to ensure my old family wouldn't show up uninvited. Thanks to the cooperation of my friends and company, I was really saved. Despite asking for a lot, everyone handled it without showing any annoyance. Hearing people say, You've been through a lot, Jessica. It's not your fault, lifted my spirits considerably. Just as I was thinking how blessed I was to have such supportive people around me, my ex-husband's loud commotion brought me back to reality. Please don't be so cold. Marshall and Lila don't work, and they're draining my salary. I even have debts. I'm on the brink of bankruptcy. I felt intense anger once again. He hurts people for his own selfish reasons, yet seeks help when he's in trouble. I couldn't help but shout at my incredibly selfish ex-husband. You've got some nerve. After tormenting me, you expect me to help you out when you're in trouble? Don't ever call me again. I hung up immediately and blocked his number. I also blocked calls from Marshall and Lila while I was at it. I had kept their numbers just in case I'd need to get in touch, but no more. I decided they were no longer necessary. I felt a sense of relief, like I finally cut all ties. All that's left is to hope for a peaceful life from now on. Later, I heard that my ex-family met quite a grim fate. My ex-husband grew sick of Marshall and Lila's wasteful habits and went missing soon after our last call. I heard he even quit his job and disappeared. I don't know where he went, but I doubt he's leading a happy life. Marshall and Lila, on the other hand, are still caught in their cycle of debt, their habits of squandering money unchanged. Even their family, friends, and relatives have abandoned them, knowing the mess they're in. I can only assume they'll keep sinking deeper into debt. When a friend told me all this, I felt a sense of achievement. I hope they regret their actions and continue to suffer. My ex-husband had been missing for a while, but I happened to see him living on the streets during a business trip. I never thought he'd become homeless. He didn't recognize me. He looked skinny and completely beaten down. Given his age, maybe he couldn't find another job. Marshall and Lila, meanwhile, filed for bankruptcy. They never stopped spending, borrowed money like it was nothing, so it ended up this way. There was no concept of living off hard-earned money for them. These two spent their days blaming each other for their financial ruin, fighting all the time. The outcome? They became a nuisance and got kicked out of their apartment. Another friend filled me in on this. But like my ex-husband, their whereabouts are now unknown. They might be homeless too, but I couldn't care less. No matter how miserable their lives become, I'll never lend a hand. In contrast, I've regained my peace. I was worried they'd hire a detective to find me, but thankfully they never showed up. They probably don't even have the money for that. All that reckless spending on luxury items, it's the epitome of what goes up must come down. As for me, work is going well, and I'm not struggling in life. Recently, a new member has joined my family. It's a pet goldfish. I was tagging along with a friend who has pets to a pet store when I fell head over heels for this adorable little creature. Honestly, I've never been particularly interested in fish before, so I find it surprising that I even own one now. But this goldfish is just too cute, and watching it eat its food is particularly soothing. The best part? It doesn't require constant care, so even with my busy job, I can easily take care of it. It's added a new layer of joy to my life. I hope my days continue to be this peaceful moving forward.